Hey everyone, welcome to part 100 of my ongoing Unsolved Mysteries series. Before we get into this episode, I just want to take a moment to say a huge thanks to all of you for supporting this series and my channel in general. And now let's get down to business. In the summer of 1988, Keith Reinhard, a 50-year-old sports writer from the Chicago area, sought a change from his routine life. He took a 3-month leave of absence from his job at the Daily Herald and relocated to Silver Plume, Colorado, a quaint town nestled in the Rocky Mountains. His objectives were clear: to overcome his fear of heights through mountain climbing, to get in shape, and to write a novel. To support himself during this period, and to just generally keep busy, he decided to open up an antique shop. He did this in a space that had previously housed a bookstore run by Tom Young, a local man who had mysteriously disappeared the year before. Reinhard became intrigued by Young's disappearance. Tom Young had vanished on September 7, 1987, along with his dog Gus. Nearly a year later, in July 1988, hunters discovered their remains in the mountains near Silver Plume. Both had died from bullet wounds to the head, and a weapon was found at the scene. Authorities ruled Young's death voluntary, though some locals doubted this conclusion, noting that Young was extremely fond of Gus and wouldn't have harmed him. Fascinated by the circumstances, Reinhard decided to base his novel on Young's story. He created a character named Guy Gypsum, a composite of himself and Young, and immersed himself in researching the case, speaking with townspeople who had known Young. This deep dive into Young's life seemed to blur the lines between Reinhard's reality and his fiction. On August 7, 1988, just a week after Young's remains were found, Reinhard closed his shop and told friends he planned to hike to the summit of Pendleton Mountain. Notably, this hike is a challenging endeavor requiring several hours. Despite the late hour, around 4:30 p.m., and his lack of proper hiking gear, he set off alone. Witnesses noted that he was wearing casual clothing and tennis shoes, unsuitable for such a trek, and carried no supplies. He mentioned he would return by 10 p.m., but he never did. A massive search operation ensued, involving over 100 personnel, helicopters, and trained dogs. The search was hampered by difficult terrain and yielded no trace of Reinhard. Tragically, during the search, a Cessna aircraft assisting in the efforts crashed, resulting in the pilot's death and serious injury to the spotter. After a week, the search was called off without any leads. Reinhard's disappearance has spurred various theories. Some suggest he may have met with foul play, possibly uncovering information about Young's death that put him at risk. Others speculate that he staged his own disappearance, influenced by the character in his novel and a desire to start anew. And remember when I mentioned that a pilot perished while conducting a search and rescue operation? Well, according to this theory, the reason why Reinhard never resurfaced in any capacity was because of potential civil liability for this pilot's death. However, his family and friends dispute a voluntary disappearance, claiming that he was content with his life and maintained regular contact with loved ones. Another theory posits that Reinhard fell victim to an accident during his hike. Given his fear of heights and the treacherous terrain, it's plausible he could have suffered a fatal fall. Yet, the exhaustive search yielded no physical evidence to support this. Though of course that isn't to say the evidence didn't exist out in the wilderness, just that it wasn't found. The coincidences between Reinhard and Young's cases are striking. Both men rented the same shop space, both disappeared in the mountains near Silver Plume, and Reinhard was writing a novel about Young at the time of his own disappearance. Despite extensive investigations, no conclusive evidence has emerged to explain Reinhard's fate. His case remains open, leaving a lingering mystery that continues to haunt the small town of Silver Plume. In my view, the timeline on this case is almost too unusual to be solely coincidental. Just a week after this grim discovery of Young, Reinhard disappeared. Some suggest Reinhard may have uncovered sensitive information that endangered him. However, others argue that the psychological impact of Young's death led Reinhard into a dangerous situation, whether by accident or design. And to put things in perspective here, Reinhard had become so obsessed with Young and his disappearance that he created a fictional character that melded his personality onto Young. To speculate a little bit here, there seems to be the serious potential that this finding destabilized Reinhard, potentially causing him to take a poorly planned out hiking trip. In July 2015, news broke that the skull of F.W. Murnau, the visionary director behind the 1922 silent film Nosferatu, had been stolen from his grave. His adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula resulted in Nosferatu, a symphony of horror, a film that has since become a cornerstone of horror cinema. Due to both copyright issues and the desire to localize the narrative for a German-speaking audience, character names and settings were altered. Count Dracula became Count Orlok, and the setting shifted from Transylvania to the fictional German town of Visborg. This version of Dracula has captivated audiences for over a century, with the most recent reimagining of the film release on Christmas Day 2024. But yeah, let's get back to the mystery itself. The theft of Murnau's skull was discovered by cemetery staff, who noted that his metal coffin had been disturbed and his head removed. Curiously, the graves of his brothers, buried alongside him, remained untouched. Investigators found wax residue at the scene, suggesting that candles had been used, possibly indicating an occult ritual. This theory, while unconfirmed, added a layer of macabre intrigue to the incident. This wasn't the first time the grave had been violated. Reports indicate that his tomb was previously disturbed in the 1970s and again in February 2015, raising questions about why this problem persisted. Notably, the production of the 1922 film is surrounded in occult activity itself. The film's producer, Albin Grau, was an occultist who claimed that the inspiration for the film came from a Serbian farmer who believed his father was a vampire. According to interviews, Grau had extensive conversations with this man while he was stationed in Serbia during the war. This connection to the supernatural, combined with the film's eerie aesthetic, has led to speculation that the movie is cursed or linked to dark forces. Further, some have speculated that Max Schreck, the actor who played Nosferatu, was a vampire himself. That said, it's worth noting that the most likely explanation is that these spooky elements were played up upon the film's release in an attempt to drum up hype. Also, Albin Grau was apparently known to have a pretty active imagination, and no direct evidence of his contact with the Serbian farmer was ever produced, calling that narrative into question. The theft of Murnau's skull remains unsolved, and as of now, there's been no official updates on the status of the investigation in nearly a decade. In 1988, an unidentified serial perpetrator is believed to have slain at least 9 women and caused the disappearances of 2 others in Massachusetts. This individual has become known to law enforcement and the general public as the new Bedford highway killer. The victims were primarily companionship workers struggling with addiction and were discovered along and around major highways, notably Interstate 195 and Route 140. Robin Rhodes, 29, is believed to have gone missing sometime in March or April 1988. She was eventually discovered on March 28, 1989, along Massachusetts Route 140 southbound in Freetown by a search dog. Unlike most of the other women, she was not known to be involved in illicit activities, though she was known to associate with people who were. Rochelle Doparala, 28, disappeared sometime during late April 1988. On December 10, 1988, her body was discovered by people riding ATVs in a gravel pit along Reed Road, about 2 miles from Interstate 195. In May 1988, 25-year-old Deborah Lynn McConnell of Newport was last seen by her father following her mother's funeral. She is considered to be the third victim. A cadaver dog found her body on December 1st, 1988, off Massachusetts Route 140 northbound in Freetown. On May 27, 1988, 29-year-old Deborah Medeiros of Fall River was reported missing after a fight with her boyfriend in New Bedford. Although Deborah's boyfriend was initially a person of interest, he was ruled out as a suspect. 19-year-old Christina Montero was last seen sometime in May 1988. She's not been heard from since, though according to authorities she's presumed deceased. It's unclear why authorities believe this. However, given that this is an active, ongoing investigation, evidence is released on a need-to-know basis. Marilyn Cardoza Roberts, 34, was last seen sometime in June 1988 and was reported missing in December 1988. She lived near Christina Montero and, like Montero, remains missing to this day. Also, like Montero, she's presumed deceased with no indication given as to why this is the case. 36-year-old Nancy Lee Paiva of New Bedford was last seen walking home from Whispers Pub on July 7, 1988, following an argument with her boyfriend in the early hours. Her body was found on July 30, 1988, beside Interstate 195 in Dartmouth, lying on her back with her feet pointed toward the highway. Authorities noted that the staging of her body was similar to how Deborah Medeiros was discovered, suggesting the same perpetrator. Naturally, her boyfriend was initially considered a suspect, but was eventually cleared of all suspicion. On July 11, 1988, 35-year-old Deborah Greenlaw DeMello was last seen in New Bedford. Her body was discovered on November 8, 1988, off the eastbound Reed Road ramp of Interstate 195 by a highway crew. Her clothing was scattered among tree branches, and she was found in possession of some of Nancy Paiva's belongings. 26-year-old Mary Rose Santos, from New Bedford, was dropped off near the downtown bus station on July 16, 1988, by her husband. She was last seen dancing at the old quarterdeck lounge about 5 hours later. Her body was eventually discovered on March 31, 1989, along Massachusetts Route 88 in Westport by two boys. Sandra Botello, 24, reportedly left her apartment at 11 p.m. on August 11, 1988, and never returned. She was the final victim to be discovered, found on April 24, 1989, in the woods along Interstate 195 in Marion. On September 4, 1988, 25-year-old Dawn Mendez was last seen leaving her apartment in New Bedford to attend a family christening. Her mostly skeletal remains were discovered on November 29, 1988, on the westbound Reed Road ramp off Interstate 195 by a sniffer dog. The investigation into these slayings was extensive, involving local and state law enforcement agencies. Several suspects were considered, including local attorney Kenneth Ponte, who had represented some of the victims in legal matters. Ponte was indicted for the slaying of one victim, 28-year-old Rochelle Doparala, but the charges were later dropped due to insufficient evidence. Another potential suspect, Anthony DeGrazia, was arrested for a variety of SA activities in the area. While he was out on bail, the authorities stated that he was the prime suspect in the New Bedford slayings. As a result of this, he was either slain, potentially by a loved one of the women, or taken out by his own hand. Notably, the authorities later retracted the statement that he was the quote-unquote prime suspect in this case. Perhaps the most intriguing theory revolves around a European serial perpetrator known as the Lisbon Ripper. Between 1992 and 1993, 3 women in Lisbon were found slain, their bodies bearing signs of vicious attacks. Speculation about a possible connection emerged because both cases involved victims of Portuguese ancestry. Some theorists propose that the Lisbon Ripper and the New Bedford highway killer could be the same individual, supported by the timeline and the supposedly eerily similar victim profiles. Automatic writing, also known as psychography, is the process of writing without conscious intention, often attributed to spiritual or subconscious influences. Practitioners claim that during automatic writing, their hand moves involuntarily, producing text that originates from the subconscious mind or external entities. Historically, automatic writing has roots in various cultural and spiritual practices. In Chinese folk religion, a form known as fuji involves using a suspended sieve or tray to guide a stick that wrote characters, believed to be messages from deities or spirits. In the West, the practice gained prominence during the 19th century with the rise of spiritualism, where mediums claim to channel messages from the deceased through automatic writing. Psychologists have studied automatic writing to understand its origins and implications. Some suggest it results from the ideomotor effect, where individuals make motions unconsciously. Others view it as a manifestation of dissociative states, where the person's consciousness is divided, allowing hidden aspects of the psyche to emerge. In contemporary times, automatic writing is often used as a therapeutic tool to explore the subconscious mind. From an occult perspective, automatic writing is viewed as a profound method of accessing wisdom beyond ordinary conscious awareness. Practitioners often describe the process as a gateway to spiritual guidance or a connection with energies, spirits, or even higher realms of consciousness. They argue that the messages received through automatic writing often carry insights or knowledge that surpass the writer's usual understanding, suggesting an external or deeper internal source. Many believe the practice serves as a direct line to the subconscious mind, enabling individuals to bypass rational filters and tap into buried thoughts, emotions, or even latent creativity. For others, automatic writing is seen as a form of divine communication, where entities such as guides, angels, or ancestors transmit guidance or answers to pressing questions. Proponents also highlight the therapeutic benefits, claiming it facilitates emotional release and fosters self-discovery. Some report feelings of clarity, purpose, or spiritual connection after sessions, emphasizing the transformative power of the experience. However, critics argue that automatic writing lacks empirical evidence and is susceptible to the writer's biases and expectations. They further point out that the content produced often reflects the individual's knowledge and experiences, casting doubt on claims of external influence. In June 2013, the serene expanse of Washington's Gifford-Pinchot National Forest became the backdrop for the perplexing disappearance of 19-year-old Maureen Kelly. Born on September 26, 1993, Maureen Kelly was a resident of Vancouver, Washington. Known affectionately as Anu to her friends, she was described as a laid-back, carefree, and affectionate individual. An aspiring singer and songwriter, Kelly often shared videos of herself playing the ukulele and beatboxing on her YouTube channel. Her last upload appeared just 2 days before her disappearance. On June 9, 2013, Kelly joined a group of friends at the Canyon Creek campground within the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. Around 5 p.m., she informed her companions that she intended to embark on a spiritual quest, a journey she had reportedly contemplated for some time. In preparation, Kelly removed all her clothing and footwear, retaining only a fanny pack containing a knife, matches, and a compass. She assured her friends she would return by midnight. When Kelly failed to return as promised, her friends reported her missing in the early hours of June 10th. The local sheriff's office promptly initiated a search operation, deploying ground teams and K-9 units. Searchers discovered bare footprints matching Kelly's foot size, indicating she had crossed Canyon Creek and proceeded north toward Forest Service Road 54. However, the trail went cold beyond this point, and sniffer dogs were unable to pick up her scent further. The search faced significant challenges due to the area's rugged terrain, characterized by dense forests and steep inclines. Adverse weather conditions further hampered the search efforts. While the day had been mild, nighttime temperatures dropped into the mid-40s Fahrenheit, raising concerns about hypothermia, especially given Kelly's lack of clothing. Despite extensive efforts, including aerial searches when weather permitted, no trace of Kelly was found. Several theories have emerged regarding Kelly's disappearance. One prevalent hypothesis suggests that she may have succumbed to the elements, with hypothermia being a likely cause given the low temperatures and her state of undress. Another theory posits that she might have encountered wildlife indigenous to the area, such as bears or cougars, though no evidence has been found to support this. As usual with disappearances such as this, there's also always some people who speculate that Kelly may have intentionally disappeared to start a new life off the grid. However, her family and friends consider this highly unlikely, citing her close relationships and lack of any preparatory actions whatsoever. In August 2024, human remains were discovered in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest, near the area where Kelly disappeared. Authorities have indicated that the remains could potentially belong to Kelly or another hiker who went missing in 2013. As of now, forensic analyses are underway to confirm the identity, and no official determination has been made. I hope to have an update on this case in a future episode in this series. Hey everyone, it's your boy Jimmy here with a quick shout out to all my subscribers, patrons, and YouTube members. Love you all. Now let's get back to business. Rosicrucianism, a mystical and esoteric tradition, emerged in early 17th century Europe. It first gained prominence with the publication of 3 manifestos: the Fama Fraternitatis in 1614, the Confessio Fraternitatis in 1615, and the Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz in 1617. These texts introduced the mythical Christian Rosenkreutz, depicted as a German nobleman who traveled extensively in the Middle East. During his travels, he acquired profound knowledge in alchemy, mysticism, and esoteric traditions. Upon returning to Europe, he allegedly established the Fraternity of the Rose Cross to disseminate this wisdom. The Fama Fraternitatis describes Rosenkreutz's journey and his intention to reform the world through the secret fraternity. It portrays the Brotherhood as a group of enlightened individuals possessing advanced scientific and spiritual knowledge. The Confessio Fraternitatis elaborates on these ideas, presenting the movement as a call for universal enlightenment and the renewal of human knowledge. The third manifesto, The Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosenkreutz, is an allegorical tale steeped in alchemical symbolism, portraying a mystical initiation process in the Middle East. The anonymity of these manifestos fueled speculation about their authorship. Many scholars believe they were the work of Johann Valentin Andrea, a German Lutheran theologian, though this remains contested. This is largely due to the fact that Andrea himself, in his autobiography, claimed that he wrote the books. However, some true believers ascribe the works to Count Saint-Germain, who they also believe may have been Christian Rosenkreutz himself. At its core, the movement blends Christian mysticism with elements of Hermeticism, Kabbalah, and alchemy. The central symbol of the Rose Cross represents the union of spiritual and material realms, encapsulating the movement's belief in the interconnectedness of science, religion, and art. The Rosicrucian manifestos emphasize the pursuit of esoteric knowledge to uncover the hidden principles governing nature and the divine. They advocate for personal enlightenment through meditation, study, and a mystical understanding of the universe. Central to Rosicrucian philosophy is the idea of universal reformation, a concept that seeks to harmonize humanity with divine laws through scientific and spiritual advancements. Alchemy, a key aspect of Rosicrucian thought, serves as both a literal and symbolic practice. While alchemists sought to transform base metals into gold, Rosicrucians viewed this process as a metaphor for spiritual transformation, emphasizing the purification of the soul. And of course, I should say that this idea that alchemy was about a spiritual journey as much as a chemical journey was well established in certain alchemical circles as well. The rise of Rosicrucianism coincided with significant intellectual and cultural shifts in Europe. The Scientific Revolution, Protestant Reformation, and Renaissance humanism provided fertile ground for esoteric movements. Rosicrucian ideals resonated with those seeking an alternative to dogmatic religious and scholarly traditions that had predominated prior. During this period, Europe witnessed a surge in interest in occult-based proto-sciences, such as astrology, alchemy, and mineralogy. The Catholic Church and other authorities viewed Rosicrucianism with suspicion, associating it with heretical ideas and secretive practices. The manifestos' call for reformation and their critique of established institutions further fueled these concerns. Its ideas influenced numerous secret societies and philosophical movements, particularly during the 18th and 19th centuries. The Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, founded in 1865, restricted membership to Master Masons, reflecting the intertwined histories of Rosicrucianism and Freemasonry. This organization sought to study and preserve Rosicrucian traditions, adapting them to a Masonic framework. This has, of course, led to numerous theories about the impact of Rosicrucian groups on world affairs. Rosicrucianism has faced skepticism and controversy since its inception. Critics have strongly questioned the authenticity of its claims, particularly the existence of Christian Rosenkreuz and the Brotherhood of the Rose Cross. Some historians view the Rosicrucian manifestos as satirical works or allegorical critiques of contemporary society, rather than literal accounts. Nevertheless, this group continues to play an outsized role in both the world of the occult and shadowy secret organizations.